Hey guys, I wanted to show a really basic breakdown of ZBrush, just how to use it. I had a few people now asking me, and so I'm going to do that. And to my best of my ability, I'm just going to wing it. I am going to just show you really. All right, let's have a look. Let's dive in. Okay, let's do this. So ZBrush has a really annoying UI. So this is the standard UI essentially. You guys will probably boot it up and be like, what the fuck is this? And I was like that too. So I'm here to support you guys, hold your hand a little bit, show you how to use it. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help you learn ZBrush, which is a pain in the ass. I'm hopefully going to get you into it and show you that it's not all that bad. And so I'm going to show you the tool menu first, which is on the right. You have load tool, copy tool, save as. You've got like different brush settings. You've got the old school 2.5D. This is where ZBrush kind of started with the 2.5D interface, and then they kind of went to 3D. And so we want to access the 3D stuff now. How you do that is by going into this tool here, and you just click on it, and then you have 3D models. And so essentially, let's start off with the sphere. Okay, and then we have this horrible matte cap. Like, it is fucking horrible. ZBrush needs to get rid of it. And so you might be thinking, I want to change that. And you can go to your matte caps and change it. The default matte cap for ZBrush, the fast shader, is pretty good, but it won't change. So you've gone in, you wanted to change that, but we're changing it on a 2.5D canvas. So you want to press Control N to get rid of the canvas, and before you want to change the material, you drag it out and go to Edit, which is up here, and that is usually onto a hotkey, and then Edit. Now this polymesh will appear editable, but it's not, it's just rotatable. But since it's dragged from this tool menu, you need to convert it to make polymesh. So you would be like, well, how do I do it? And you're like, make polymesh 3D. And you're like, where's polymesh 3D? And it's up here in this little box right here. But you got to find it. And this is probably another annoying step that people will come to, and they'll be like, oh, how do I do it? Since you've gotten past the edit and the canvas, now you need to get past this. So you click make polymesh 3D, and then watch out. Look at what we can do. We can go in, press Alt to negative, subtract that, I should say, or invert your brush stroke, and this will be a Z-add. So it's essentially called Z-add and Z-sub to be precise. And so Control Z to undo. And so let's get started with the materials. Materials in here, you can change them. You can go here, and it is just fun, right? But so let's just load up a canvas that will make things a little bit easier. Well, the thing is with the canvas, I just like to load in a YouTube canvas that is really just an obvious color, so it makes everything that I do really punchy, and that's how you do it. And the way I did that was I went and changed the color for document, and you just go to document and you can change color whatever you like, and this will cover your canvas size. So if you want to go into here, you can change that, and I'll change that there. We can change it back to this, make it big again. And the thing is, as you do that, it will get stuck, and you need to clear the canvas again by going to Control N to clear the canvas, and now we've got a fresh canvas. So there we are. I like to work in my matte cap here, and well, the menu is not the greatest by clicking it, so that will then have to be, again, you have to make sure you go to edit and stay in edit mode for the duration of working and changing your materials. As soon as you come off edit, it will, you can't access that because it's dropped to the canvas. Press Control N again to get rid of that. So we'll go to edit. Now you want to edit this, and I've just changed the document to how I want it, just so it's a little bit more, tutorial showing in my traditional way that I've been showing these short tutorials. And so if we want to add some subdivision now, to this mesh, you can see that we're running out of subdivisions. And so we need to go into divide, and now we've got more subdivisions. And to access the wireframe to see how many subdivisions you've got, because this will be divided as you press divide here, divide. You can hook that to a short key, a hotkey. I mean, a shortcut hotkey. And so as you divide this mesh geometry by going, Shift F to get to it, or it will be in one of the menus in ZBrush. I believe it is, I have no idea, I think transform in transform. So polymesh here, draw polyframe. So I'm trying to remember these things, but I'll remember them as we go. And so we've added some subdivision. We can explore the lowest level of subdivision. This is the base level 0 subdivision. And then that's 1 and 2, even though it says 1, it's 1. It's kind of a 0. To me it's 0, and then you add 1. But however you want to look at it, because I wouldn't consider 1 as a subdivision, I'd consider it 0. But however you want to look at it. Alright, so you've got dynamic subdivision, which is interesting in its own right, because it's dynamic and it doesn't work like it works like the traditional subdivision. So say Modo or XSI or Maya, it works like that. And so dynamic is the way it traditionally works. It's not dividing it in the way ZBrush divides like subdivision meshes, because it does divide it in a way where your level 1 mesh will get a little bit almost like it will tweak it to adjust the additional subdivisions that it's added to it. And so say if you bring in a hard surface mesh or even organic mesh, but it's more noticeable hard surfaces, and you go to divide, your 0 level, which is 1, will be slightly changed. And so you just have to be aware of that. And if you don't want to change it, you use dynamic subdivision, because as soon as you turn dynamic subdivision off, it's not permanently changed by dividing it, which the way this does it, it will do that. So if you just want to like go in, I want to take a model from Maya or Modo or whatever, or Blender, you want to use dynamic subdivision. So you go there, click it on, and you can go, well, how many subdivisions I want? You can go here, and you just go 3 is pretty good, and then you can just start sculpting. And that will be very much sculpting in the traditional way those applications sculpt with subdivision meshes. So ZBrush does it a little bit differently, and so you just have to be aware of that. It's dynamic, right? Dynamic doesn't fuck up your 0 level mesh. So however you want to skin that cat, I don't know, but it's just something you got to be aware of. And I'm just going to go through and kind of list the things that you might want to use. Things like Dynamesh is good, Shadowbox is alright, but I use a lot of Dynamesh. So say if we want to come here, we want to use some Dynamesh, we want to go, okay, I want to use that Dynamesh, and how do we do that? And we go click the Dynamesh, and now we've got Dynamesh. All right, so how do we get to that? We just click Dynamesh, but we want to be aware of the resolution here. The sub projection is basically if you have certain details that starts to get really small and you want to reproject that, and as you redrag onto the canvas by pressing Control and clicking like that, Control, and click the canvas, then drag that mask out onto the empty canvas, it will readjust that detail. And so if you have sub projection on, it will do a better job at projecting these details to the next reprojection for Dynamesh. But I suggest you don't use it because it is slow, and so you just turn it all the way down. If you did want to use it, you got to first click this button here, project anyway, but it's slow. I don't use it. Turn blur down. I don't use polish. I use groups. That's about it. I would find that for hard surface stuff that you're trying to work quickly and get a concept out, I wouldn't use any of those things because they are slow. you can see that it's already a little bit slow here. But if you just use your Dynamesh with, the groups are good, because when you come in and say, we're kind of using it with dynamic subdivision. This is why it's slow. So make sure you don't use dynamic subdivision like I did. So we can make a group here, which you can press Control W to make a new group, or you can, that's for the selection for the mask. That's a tricks in ZBrush, right? So you can usually, if you got visibility, you can do hide unmasked, and then you can go back to your polygroups, and then you can like group the visible, and then you can create that, and then you go back to visible and you go show all, and then you've got that polygroup, or that shortcut of just going here, Control W. So there's little things like that, and which polygroup is under here, which group, I can't remember, group visible, Control W. It'll be one of these ones that, yeah, that one there. No, that's sub, but I figured out the hotkey to group masking. It's under one of these group masks. There we go, group mask polygons. I think that's it there, but that's what it does anyway. Control group the masked polygons. You can just create like crazy, and then do that. And so that covers, Dynamesh, subdivision modeling. So we'll go on to grouping, and I guess we'll go on to masking. And so we'll turn the gizmo off for now, because we don't want to use that. We'll go back to edit, draw, turn the wireframe off by Shift F. So Shift F will turn that off, and you can see that this is just your sculpting tools, blah blah blah, right? And so I would be like, with masking, you can come in and then press Control A to invert that mask. You can come in there and just do that. So that's how you can do those little detail things. I'm not going to do modeling in this tutorial. I'm just going to do whatever the basics are. You can then now, so we can do more of this. Now I guess we'll tackle that gizmo next, because then you kind of want to use the gizmo with combination modeling. And so we'll go to the gizmo, and we've got this gizmo thing, and we've got X, Y, Z. You can move it up or down. We can do Control Shift, and that should, I think it's either Control Alt to then extrude a new polygroup. So that's something you guys can be aware of. Control Alt to shift new polygroups, because sometimes you want to come in and use those polygroups from the extruded areas. So that's one way to do a new polygroup and use the gizmo. And we've got a bunch of little different things. You can lock the you can lock this, so this won't move, your orientation won't move by pressing Alt to move the orientation. So I should cover that. And so you can press Alt to move this around your model to change the pivot, but if you lock it, it shouldn't do it. Oh, it did it. Okay, it's for another thing that I'm pretty sure you can hold Alt to unlock. It should lock it, but who cares? This is not a tutorial where I know everything. Okay, this is essentially not locking. I'm doing something wrong, but traditionally it would lock that. Either it will lock it in place for when you want to get to it next, so save it, I assume. It should. Or it's this. No, I've got it wrong. I believe I've got it wrong. Do I have it wrong? Yeah. So that's unlocked. Fuck knows. I've got this completely wrong. So that's unlocked. Let's have a look. And then we got this, unlocked it. So that, I guess that's like just moving the pivot. Lets you move that pivot. Alright. Even though Alt is to move the pivot also with lock feature on and off. Okay, great. And that resets your orientation. Look, all these gizmos and stuff, I don't find them very good in ZBrush. I actually find them quite crap. And so let's explore the crapness of this little quirks of ZBrush. And we've got the cog. I don't mind the cog and the bend arc. And so you can come in and do these. This is cool. I like this stuff. It is kind of crap that there is probably the very tiny little handles to tweak, I would say that's probably like, they could probably make it like fucking just 10% bigger. We'll just make life just a little bit easier to tweak these things. And some maybe different, the arrows are all arrows. Maybe they could be differentiated with the arrows. Just the color, having the color stuff is, it can be difficult. So that's another little quirky thing you got to get used to. ZBrush is hard. Even I struggle with using certain things. I'm not like immune to this stuff, and I forget how to use things because ZBrush is probably the most convoluted program that you could ever pick up. So that was the gizmo, and now we want to show the old traditional thing that you know, it came with. Essentially, that isn't the gizmo. So now we need to get out of this menu, and I'm trying to find where the gizmo has gone. Usually, just click this up here, the gizmo, and that's to get to the new gizmo. And this is the old school transpose. The lighting in the desktop the background color doesn't help, but this is a gizmo, and this will do the move. I actually just prefer this. It's easier. It's more simple. You can do the trim. You can play with these things. They do little different things. They stretch. They tend to, like, this is pretty handy when you want to flatten something. And but you know, the gizmo has the other things in it. This is why they kept it. ZBrush is a very it's a convoluted mess, but not if you know how to use it, but still a mess. It's a mess, but not a mess. Like it's a weird program, and this is what I'm trying to like show you guys. Even I like mess up in it. So that's those gizmo tools. You can rotate, you can scale. If you go to these little different things here, and if you click that gizmo, this will change. So that will move from there. You're moving. That's just based on this point here, but if you go to this point, it will move from here, and this one will, I think this will stretch. So it's a bit confusing because you went to move, but those are the like the quick little things that you can get to if you're using it. But this is scale. This will probably scale on all these little things here, and that will scale on the different axis there, because this is pretty much scaling. You can see how that scales from there to there, and that point from there to there. Like, so that's how that works. You got rotate, it's explanatory. Rotate, that will flip it in the middle. So fun times. All right, so now you've got this, and what else can we do with it really? And we'll turn it back to edit. We'll show some brushes. So brushes are in here. You've got a bunch of different brushes because I have custom ones, but ZBrush comes with a bunch of different brushes also. And you know, like I've got my brushes that I use from time to time, and you can make custom brushes, so you can come in and do stuff with them. And so since we're covering brushes, we've got alphas here. You can change your alpha for that brush. So if you want a square detail, we can do that like so, and it looks pretty cool. So what else do we want to do here? We essentially, what we want to do is then maybe go into stroke, and that will change the stroke here. Say lazy mouse is pretty good, and with lazy mouse you can play with the settings. If you set the step settings higher, that will be like so. Lazy smooth, lazy radius, like all these things. Snap to track if you want to like do like a but you need to make sure you have a line, and well, spline is different to the line, but that will do it like that. But make sure if you go to stroke, your lazy step is very low. It's for a good nice brush, and so we do like that, and there we go. And so yeah, that's how you do those cool straight effects like so. What else can we discuss? Because I go through all these things, explore them. You've got drag like that, but make sure you turn the stroke off, which we need to make sure we do that. Otherwise it will mess up. So we take the stroke, the backtrack, and now we can do that, and that will just drag that effect on there. And just to explore all these things, click Control to read all these things. Go in, have a look. So that's covering your brushes, strokes, subdivision, materials. You got the color swatches here if you want to change your color swatches. Yep, that's pretty basic. We'll change it back to the lights. So we will cover, what else can we cover? Can go to the transform. Transform is basically activate symmetry, so we can have symmetry, but there's no symmetry in this. So we'll go to a new subtool, make the polymesh 3D. We press X for symmetry, which is activate symmetry, and now we can go and play with the symmetry like so. And so when you're working, you want to, we'll go back to this, just a different brush. So, and you'll notice that sometimes your canvas is on a weird rotation. You want to go to play with the rotate on axis, change these around until you find the rotation, because if you're working with symmetry, you keep rotating around, you're like, I'm working this way, but I want to look at the detail that way. So you just play with it until you find the right axis, and you're like, nah, still not right. I believe it's X, Y, Z. Yep, there we go. And that's finding the right axis for the orientation that you're desiring. And so let's cover just a little bit of detailing. So you can press Shift to smooth, like so, and Alt to, change the Z add and Z sub, and S to change the draw size. So which are all accessible up here. Okay, and so this is that menu in here that we've covered for activate symmetry, all that stuff. I suggest you look through all that stuff as well. The next one I want to cover is texturing. Let's go over texturing. Texturing can be important. Say if we want to, put a UV map on this. I suggest you explore all these little things in here, all of them. Have a look at all of them. You might find them useful. And so this is already having a UV map on it. We'll delete the UVs. We can use all these different UV ways of creating UV maps in here. You can just go a bunch of different UV planar tiles. Sphere might work, but however it works the best, you can try. And so we want to look at the texture map. We can apply a texture like so. If you want to import a texture, you go and import a texture through here, through the texture menu, and you can apply it to your model like so. I did pretty much texture map like so, and you can clone it. You can sometimes you need to use fixeme, all those type of things, and that's your texture applied. So if you want to turn it off, click that. I won't explain displacement maps, a little bit too advanced or something basic. You got normal maps, display properties. Sometimes you want to flip your things. This is handy, which I find sometimes you've imported something and you just want to flip it. If you're wondering how, you can flip it that way. Or if you want to make something double-sided, you can click double-sided for thin geometry. And that covers modeling, blah, 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 right? And your subtools, we'll go into subtools. If you duplicate, you have a bunch of different subtools here, and you can see that there's multiple subtools now. And you can go in here and you can delete those subtools. You can append from another subtool, from another one open, a ZTL, I would say. And that is it for that, really. You can merge multiple subtools. You can merge them down in the list, and you can press OK. So now we have two subtools merged together. And so you can merge the visible, and that will create a new subtool, ZTL, and that's merged everything together in the one big soup of mess. And so what else can we cover in these menus is remesh. Remesh is interesting. You can click remesh, and it will remesh this current mesh. You've got Z-Brsuh, that's pretty handy. It will go through and Z-Remesh this mesh. It hopefully will go through and not cause too much of a mess, but Z-Remesh is handy for creating new geometry, and so we've got that, but it's a mess because it's it's done a Z-Remesh on all these meshes, which is interesting. It could be fun to make stuff like this. It's actually a good idea, actually. So you got that looks pretty cool, and you can use the dynamic subdivision to play with that and not mess with 0 level, and make sure you can crank the meshes, the subdivisions higher, and which is interesting. You can just have fun with that. So that's Z-Remesh. And what else can we do? We've got nano mesh, which is something else that you probably should be reading up on, which is not basic. I've covered poly groups, most of those things have been covered. This is just the basic learning of ZBrush, and I've covered your gizmo. You got the stroke details. I'm sure I've covered that. Yep, covered that. Preferences, you might want to go to this one and do test multi-threading and create a get what's the best for your system. So your viewport performance is really good. That's a basic thing I should probably mention. Sometimes it can slow down, and you've got store config for when you've want to do a basic enable customize. So basic UI setup. Let's go through it. And so now we've gone enable customize, and we want to go into one of these menus. So now we want to go, okay, we want one of these brushes that we have in here, and we go Control Alt and just drag that. And now we've got this up here accessible, as you can see. And so you can do that with any of these things in these menus. You can just drag it and then create a custom UI that way. And so if you want to save that UI, you can just not just like anything, but you just go to, just trying to figure out where these menus are, store config, and you click store for config. I won't do that because it will save over mine, and that's how you get that config there. And if the other thing is that tying it into ZBrush configuration, if you want to go and set up a button for a hotkey for dynamic, and you want this dynamic to be to a hotkey, press Control Alt, right, and then it will ask you, I think I might have to get out of enable custom, Control Alt, there we go, and it will tell you up in the left corner which hotkey you want to do, and you just press something like A, and then it'll override that hotkey and set dynamic to that there. You can see that turns on and off there. And another thing I wanted to show you is rendering. And so if we want to render this beautiful thing, we want to go to here, best render, and that will just render it with shadows. And that's just like how you get a really basic ZBrush render done, right? So I think that covers the majority of ZBrush. I've covered all these things here, the color thing I've covered, the preferences for basic modeling stuff, the textures, the strokes, the transform. My last suggestions would be is to go through all these things, press Control on them to highlight them, and just get a reading of what each and everything is. Go through all this stuff and just explore it, explore. And I hope this really basic tutorial helped you guys to learn ZBrush and get the balls to get out there and yeah, I'm going to do this ZBrush thing, and the kahunas to be like, yeah, I can learn this, because it requires a lot of I think it requires a lot of effort to learn ZBrush, looking back, and so it's a tough program. It really is, and I hope you guys can get something out of it and learn it from this tutorial and give you confidence in learning that. So you guys can like and subscribe if you feel that this information is any good to you, and until next time guys, take care.